Hello, everyone. I'm Rima from Advocacy, and I welcome you to the fourth and the final wrap-up session of E4J's Global Dialogue Series, where we are reimagining education for a more just world. I hope you have been following the conversation on Twitter with the hashtag Justice Dialogues, where we have been sharing some of the most amazing insights we have received this week, with much more content to discover on our website, unodc.org/E4J, which I hope you'll still be many to visit. I'm very happy to tell you that today we will be joined by our Senior Program Officer and Global Coordinator of UNODC's Global Program for the Implementation of the Doha Declaration, Mr. Mauricio Peixoto, and a number of esteemed guests for perspectives on this unprecedented global dialogue on education and the rule of law. Today, however, let me start by inviting four of my esteemed E4J colleagues to sum up the essence of this conference. I'd like you to welcome Bianca Kopp, Tertiary Education Coordinator, Gilberto Duarte, Secondary Education Coordinator, Lulua Assad, Primary Education Coordinator, and Marion Ehad, Associate Expert in Crime Prevention, all of whom you will have seen and spoken to on various occasions this week. In 1 minute, colleagues, and I know this is nearly impossible, I would like you to tell our viewers what you take away from this conference, what you feel we have brought to the world of education and the rule of law. Bianca, let me start with you.
Thank you, Rima. That was an exciting week, and I think what this week has shown is that the Education for Justice initiative is really good in bringing together stakeholders. Stakeholders important for achieving the SDGs, particularly the Sustainable Development Goal 16 on peace, justice and strong institution. And moreover, it has also shown that we are even better in building bridges among those stakeholders and in forming truly great partnerships that are needed to address tomorrow's challenges. So I'm very excited. It has been a fantastic week with a lot of inspirational discussion with so many academics, experts, member states joining in, and this was truly inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. I turn to you, Gilberto.
Thank you, Reem. As you all know, we had several young members, young speakers throughout this conference who gave us incredible insight about what they think needs to be done to promote the rule of law and the role of youth, with incredible ideas showing an enormous potential. And this shows us just how important it is to ensure that young people are meaningfully engaged in promoting the rule of law. And we are also more aware as ever of the power of education to foster and empower young people to promote the rule of law. So I think that this is my key takeaway from this conference, and definitely let's be reaching out more to young people worldwide.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gilberto. Lulua.
Thank you, Reem. I must say, I feel today, after 4 days, inspired, connected, and empowered. Throughout the E4J Dialogue series, I have interacted with policymakers, educators, youth, innovators. And an experience I hold also dearly close to my heart is our interaction also with two young women from the Zaatari refugee camp who want to learn and be part of the change. I have also interacted with stakeholders who want to make a difference and promote gender equality, innovation, and find ways to also address the digital gap. And an important takeaway for me, and I think for everyone also who was attending the E4J Dialogue series, is that education should reach the most vulnerable, including those who are not enrolled in schools, those who are living on the streets, those who are placed in institutions or even living in refugee camps, are poor or living in remote areas with no access to technology or even schools. They are part of our solution to build a better future. We should not forget or leave anyone behind, mainly because education is a human right, and it is our duty together to promote education for justice and education for the rule of law. And I think everyone shares this feeling today, and as Bianca and Gilberto have said, we are inspired and we have learned also a lot from our partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Lulua. I turn to you, Marion.
Thank you, Reem. For me, the highlights of this E4J Global Dialogue series relate to three important aspects of E4J work. I think of the multi-stakeholder approach, the multilingualism, and the creativity. The multi-stakeholder approach has already been mentioned by my colleagues. We had this week stakeholders from the education sector, from the criminal justice sectors. We had a lot of NGOs, we had youth, we had policymakers. So that was really great to see all of them discussing education for the rule of law, and of course the contributions to the SDGs. Regarding the multilingualism, I was of course very happy to see so many events organized with partners from all around the world in different languages. For example, in French, we had 3 events, and that really allowed the Francophone community to share good practices, tips, tools, etc. And finally, I would say on the creativity side, it was not only in the forms of the events, like we had sessions moderated by youth, we had a graphic recording, we had interactive quizzes, surveys, and so on, but also in terms of content. As my colleague said, we discussed, of course, teaching, education, but when we spoke, for example, about the role of higher education institutions and schools in contributing to the SDGs, we spoke, of course, about teaching, which is at the core of our work, but also about their impact on environment, about the governance of universities, about the role of education in tackling important rule of law issues like trafficking in persons, trafficking in falsified medical products. So all these discussions were very inspiring for me, and I hope we will have other opportunities soon to discuss them with all our partners.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you to all my E4J colleagues who have done an amazing feat this week. And after having heard from our E4J colleagues, I would like you, dear viewers, to see or to hear the educator's perspective. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by Dr. Hilligje van 't Land, who is the Secretary General of the International Association of Universities, by Dr. Ashok Pandey, Director of the Alcon Group of Schools from India. Welcome to both of you. Hilligje, if I may start with you, I'm really asking the same question of all our panelists today. What do you take away from this E4J Global Dialogue, and what have you learned, or what did you feel that you brought to others? We'd love to hear your perspective. We need you to unmute, please.
Sorry. Yes, I have really very much appreciated the debates all along the different panels that have taken place. And what struck me most is this incredibly innovative spirit that was actually flowing through the different sessions and up until the very end. And where did it come from? From this dynamics of multilateral, multi-stakeholder cooperation, a real new way of looking at things, something that is inspired by the connection between the different stakeholders, but also between the different disciplines that were brought to the table. And through all that, one essential point came to the fore, and that is the undeniable power of education at all the levels, and also the undeniable importance of a whole system approach to everything that we do, and that through higher education we can instill and transform the world and use the opportunities that are out there today to the maximum and change the world for a better one. So as I said in a previous session, I'm not naive, it will not be easy still, but these dynamics definitely are the ones we can build on. And we can make sure that we find new ways to do things that we've done in the past, maybe not always the best. And then one last point that I take away from this is the incredible people that we've been able to meet along the way in these and on these different panels. People I had maybe read about or never heard about, and definitely new connections to make sure that the rule of law is the one that we cherish most and defend and promote for the future. And higher education definitely is part of all this.
Thank you so much for your insight. I would like to turn to Dr. Ashok Pandey. Would you tell us as well what you take away from this conference? You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Reem. I am an eternal believer in the power of positivity. And this formidable combination of UNESCO and UNODC has brought a lot of power of positivity, reiteration of the basic need of education. education, investment in education, I believe has infinite returns, and everybody agrees to it. Education is universal. It does not depend on age, gender, ethnicity, faith, even politics. And therefore, these discussions have brought the need of education in the center of all this. And the power of goal number 4 and goal number 16, combined with the power of goal number 17, the partnership of all together, I'm sure is going to take us on the path of achieving SDGs, because I'm always saying this, I said it in the conference before, that the gains made in SDGs are irreversible, and we should be very, very cautious of it. If we lower our guards, people are ready to take excuses and withdraw from this campaign. And hence, one of the foremost conclusion of this dialogue, series of dialogue should be that let us not be deterred by the circumstances, and regardless of all, let's move forward.
What a wonderful takeaway from the conference. Thank you so much to both of you. And having heard from the experts in rule of law, and having heard from the educators, I turn now to a very important component, our youth. And we would like to hear the perspective of Mauricio Peixoto, who is youth champion and founder of School 2030 in Brazil. Welcome. And Janet Shufor, who is a doctoral student in technology, learning, and leadership from Maryland University. Janet, if I may start with you, would you tell us what is your takeaway from this conference, please?
Yeah, well, thank you, everyone. I was so excited to be a part of this. And I would say my most important takeaway was how this conference was able to ground an abstract term called innovation through using an interdisciplinary approach to ground something as abstract as innovation between disciplines such as rule of law, technology, and education that traditionally exist as silos, and grounding that and finding the intersections where innovation actually happens. So we kind of use the word innovation every day without probably paying attention to what it really is. But this conference was really a good place where I saw the grounding of this word through the activities that already happen. Like people talk about how they were intersecting technology, education, and then rule of law. Like how do these things meet? You have words like equity that come in, and that's where innovation actually stays. So it's one thing to talk about things and put them in policies, and then it's another thing to actually bring the microscope close to it and actually see what is this? Is this innovation? Yes, it is. So all of those practices that people in my panel were talking about are actually innovation. We actually saw innovations happening. How do we now amplify those innovations to reach everyone, everywhere? Is this something new? No, people are actually doing it already. So it's there. That's now like this conference and UNODC is actually bringing to bear what is already there. So thank you.
Thank you so much for this insight. I turn to Maurizio, and I'd love to hear what you have taken away from this conference, please.
Thank you, Reem. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. I'm really honored to be part of it. I had the privilege to be co-moderator of the closing session, and I feel really inspired, and that is the most important takeaway from this event. It's interesting to see that many institutions, along with a lot of partnerships, have been working to maximize opportunities to young people. And because I founded a project here in Brazil, and I feel this necessity of having more opportunities. It's difficult for running a youth-led organization, right? And we need more of that, more opportunities, because we are really aware of the challenges that we have been facing, but listen to the recommendations of also and see that there are a lot of institutions that are backing up our projects, that we can count on you to keep doing our work to ensure the rule of law among children and teenagers is really satisfying. So I'm really motivated to keep doing the job that I have been working on, and also to share what I have learned with my network and with my students. So thank you so much for that.
It has been our pleasure to hear all of you and to get your insights. And now I have to give the last word, which could only go to our E4J, after our E4J Global Dialogue Series, can only go to our Senior Program Officer, Mr. Marco Teixeira. Marco, thank you so much for having agreed to do this. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Riemann. It's my pleasure. To be here is not an obligation, and that's what I wanted to start. It's a pleasure because besides hearing our stakeholders, our participants, and some inspiring takeaways, I had the pleasure to start with you this last session hearing my colleagues, my team, the different coordinators of E4J, to sharing their insights. But I want to dedicate my first words to the broader team also. Besides the colleagues that spoke, in the background, there's a lot of colleagues that work in Vienna and in the field that are actually part of the machinery to bring a dream into reality. And I want to acknowledge their work. They are part of building success. Now, in a more formal way, Riemann, going to your question, the Global Dialogue Series have provided us, I think, a forward-looking perspective on the opportunities that COVID-19 pandemic also provide to us to rethink education for justice worldwide, for peaceful, just, and inclusive societies, and highlighting how powerful education can be and what, by working together, we can achieve. And the takeaways from the previous speakers also illustrate that. E4J, jointly with partners around the world, concluded with all of you more than 35 online sections in 5 of the official UN languages. And of course, it is our first Global Dialogue Series, Reimagining Education for a More Just World, Inspired Change Together. And I think with more than 2,100 participants representing 180 countries, we should say that we have achieved the world in terms of outreach of our message. Also, we were able to organize this event with a variety of stakeholders and partners. We have more than 178 external speakers. And of course, if we can say that we had success in the past 4 days, the credit also goes to our partners and our speakers. To stray truly truth to the concept of IT, online nature of this event, social media was key. And of course, a big thank you also to our communication team that is in the background working on that dimension. And our outreach, it was an important tool that we used to reach audiences globally and engaging audiences in the different languages. And I was delighted to see so many of our partners sharing their sessions, their thoughts, their social media accounts to their own audiences and trying to reach out how important was this dialogue. And of course, this interactive nature is part of what we tried to achieve. Of course, we are still counting what was our social media footprint, but as this afternoon we get around more than 470 Twitter accounts engaged with the event, more than 1,300 tweets were published, and this reached more or less 3.2 million users, which I think is a very interesting metrics to analyze. Regarding challenges, I have selected 7 challenges that I want to highlight with all of you that actually were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's go through it. One of those challenges is technology and access to internet. Another challenge is promotion of rule of law. Another dimension was youth. Another one was reducing gender gaps, reaching vulnerable groups and reducing inequalities, promoting multilingualism, and achieving the SDGs to recover better together. So let me start with each one of them. First, technology. Many communities do not have the technology needed to access decent learning, devices or internet connections. And we have seen throughout this week, so many of our friends, so many of our E4J champions and partners having issues with their connectivity to internet. The second challenges that we face is the promotion of rule of law. Regarding the challenges that COVID-19 brought to us, we must need to continue to reshape existing forms of education and ensure that values such as integrity, justice, equality, and respect are obviously continue to be included in the global curriculum to ensure we can shape a better world. The third element that I mentioned is, despite of some distant learning solution, it is estimated that we have millions of students they are cut off from the educational sector and affected by the school shutdown. This will drastically impact future generations, and if this trend continues, will impact countries' economical and social stabilities. So we need to empower youth to take an active role in shaping the future they want. We need to make sure that their voices are heard and acted upon. So I was very glad to see our youth champions moderating several of our sections. The fourth element that I want to mention is reducing gender gaps. We just spoke about youth. I would like to especially highlight that girls, 11 million girls, might not return to school this year due to COVID-19 education disruption. And this is a figure that UNESCO provided. So the COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated some gender inequalities and gender-based violence also. And girls around the world face an increasing risk of other factors that will hinder their own development and education performance. So we need to try to address those challenges. The fifth element is reaching vulnerable groups and reducing socio-economic inequalities. The pandemic is widening pre-existing gaps between the rich and the poor children and the way they can learn. For me and for us, education is a human right that all people should enjoy, no matter where they live, no matter where they are, no matter what is their social economical status. For sure, education continues to play a critical role to build up social skills for the future. So the main idea for us is leaving no one behind, and we try to work, for instance, with indigenous groups that are normally excluded from formal education in some countries and some contexts. The sixth element, and I think one of my colleagues mentioned it, is promoting multilingualism. We have concluded over than 300 individual translations of our materials into 15 different languages and counting. That's why we held events during our global dialogue series in the variety of languages to allow students to work in the language they are more comfortable with, and our experts and our stakeholders also to speak and use the language as a tool to translate bridges between knowledge and the knowledge gap. Also mentioned that some of our tools are being regionalized to be more applicable to the regional context they will be using. Finally, the seventh element is achieving the SDGs through Recover Better Together initiatives. COVID-19 has obviously impacted the achievement of SDG goals, and educators need to be supported, and be supported more than ever. They need capacity building on rule of law, education, quality resources, and also innovative tools to allow them to share their experience with us and also to benefit from the experience from others. Schools and higher education institutions have a critical role to play also to achieve the SDGs, so let's try to accompany them to form and shape the next generation. E4J seeks to achieve all of those 7 challenges that I mentioned. We have reached 1.4 million students that were engaged in more than 600 of our activities, and for sure, together we can achieve more. So I'm encouraged by the outcomes of the Education for Justice Global Dialogue series of this week. Clearly, many of us have a lot to contribute, and for sure, together we'll continue to contribute. While it was very challenging, the situation that COVID-19 pandemic brought to us, it's also a big opportunity to robust and strengthen the human spirit that we find innovative ways to find solutions to the current challenges, and for sure, rethink education for justice to safeguard a better future for all of us. So, Krim, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Marco, for continuing to lead as we all in our different functions try to inspire change together. A big thank you to our guest speakers, to our participants, to our partners, and to the fantastic team who Marco has already thanked, who are many and who have worked tirelessly for weeks to make this conference so successful. Before we leave you, I'd like to remind you to regularly check our social media accounts and our website, unodc.org/E4J, to keep abreast of the amazing educational tools at your disposal and of future events we will be holding. Until we meet again next year, virtually or in person, please everyone stay safe, and from UNODC headquarters in Vienna, goodbye and auf Wiedersehen.